It's bright and early here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. Welcome to the morning brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Top on the brief this morning, being suspended is not a great way to start your year, but that's the reality of one of President Tinubu's youngest cabinet members, Dr. Betta. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation was suspended by the president to allow the anti-graft agency EFCC conduct thorough investigation into all aspects of financial transactions in the ministry after a leaked memo revealed how the minister approved the payment of 585 million naira to an individual's account in a breach of the government's financial regulations 2009. Now, on the directive of the president also, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy is to carry out what they describe as diagnostics, financial architecture and framework on the social investment programs. They want to eliminate what they call institutional frailties and regain public trust. And by the way, Dr. Betta is expected at the EFCC office later today. So Nigerians roared and the president responded. Let's move on now. Dr. Betta is not the only minister in the eye of the storm. Our counterpart in the Ministry of Interior, Mr. Tinubu, has also come under fire after it was discovered that a company he founded also received over 400 million naira as consultancy fee for the National Social Register contract. However, Mr. Tinubu has clarified that he is no longer a signatory to the Planet, or the company is called New Planet Project Limited, that received the consultancy fee from the 3 billion naira deal in the humanitarian ministry. Mr. Ojo said this during our program Politics Today and maintained that he left the company's board in 2019 when he was elected as a member of the House of Representatives and as such has no role in the organization's activities.
Not drag me into a business that is not mine. I am not a director. I am not in charge of day-to-day operation of the company. As I have said, did the company go through the due process? If the answer is a yes, fantastic. If they didn't do it, then government takes charge of it. I'm not involved. I've not been involved in the affairs of the company in the last 5 years. Is it on January 1 when I was busy in immigration headquarters and I was working? You were there with me. You know what I mean? On Saturday, we were busy working. Even on Sunday, we were working, trying to bring up a sweet experience. So for me, this issue is just a diversion. As far as I'm concerned, it's a non-issue for me. I am not a director in the company. Right. And if the company is found wanted, then definitely the law will take its course. But as far as I'm concerned, I am a different entity from the company. And as of today, I am not an officer of the company, but I am an officer and minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, courtesy of the magnanimity of Mr. President Bola Tinubu.
I'm not an officer of the company, according to Tinubu. But on a brighter side, from March the 8th this year, Nigerians will no longer have to visit immigration offices for their biometrics. How resoundingly exciting that can be. In fact, that can now be done from the comfort of your homes. And wait for this, your passport will be delivered to you at home. Talk about good times.
But for the passport scheme, I tell you, this solution we've just shown you is for Nigeria. By February 8th, the solution we will unveil that of the diaspora. Then by March 8th, as I said, every Nigerian will have an immigration office on their phones. That is the target. No more human contact in terms of that. And by that March 8th, my brother, we will invite you to the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. We will tell you to tell your correspondents to go to all international airports in Nigeria. The e-gate will be live and direct, where Nigerians will be able to come into the country without any interaction with immigration officers, unless they are persons of interest. So we are transforming the whole process. When you go to the immigration center, you will see the command and control center that is presently going on there. It's a massive world-class project that we're trying to do. But the help desk, as I said, all these services, no matter how well we deliver, we have to ensure that user experience is key. We have to make sure that Nigerians can actually seek help when they need help. And that's why there's this help desk.
I just kind of like the sound of this development. But, well, let's move on now. More job loss for federal appointees as the president has, with immediate effect, dismissed the executive vice chairman and CEO of Federal Competition and Consumer Protection, Mr. Babatunde Irukare. Also dismissed is the director general and CEO of Bureau for Public Enterprises, Mr. Alexander Oko. In a statement by the presidential spokesperson, Mr. Ajiringalale, the SAC is in conformity with the federal government's plans to restructure and also reposition the agencies in protecting citizens' rights, amongst others. Now, let's move on to other stories. The verdict is in. Governor Hyacinth Ali of Benue State can now focus on governance after the Supreme Court dismissed an appeal preferred against his deputy, Sam Ode, bordering on forgery allegation by the PDP governorship candidate, Mr. Titus Uba. The Apex Court also affirmed the election of the cleric turned politician following the withdrawal of an appeal by counsel for the PDP governorship candidate, Mr. Sebastian Horn. And the backstory is that Mr. Uba had challenged the victory of the governor of Benue State, of the APC, but the Election Petition Tribunal and the Court of Appeal Abuja affirmed Mr. Alia's election as governor of Benue State as declared by INEC in March this year. The case bordered on pre-election matters.
I'm quite pleased that it's come to this point. It's going to ginger us some more to do the great things for the state. Actually, it's quite a high time for everyone to come on board with us, for the progress, for the development of Benue State.
However, his counterpart in Ebonyi State, Governor Francis Nwifuru, is to know his fate at a later date, and that's because the Supreme Court has reserved judgment in the state governorship election appeal to a date that will be communicated to parties. Justice John Okoro reserved the judgment after parties adopted their briefs of argument just yesterday. The Court of Appeal Lagos had earlier affirmed the election of Mr. Nwifuru as the duly elected governor of Ebonyi State in a unanimous decision. The three-man member panel, led by Justice Juma Isanki, dismissed the appeal filed by the PDP candidate, Mr. Chukwuma Odi, over issues of validity of nomination, where the PDP argued that Governor Nwifuru was not a member of the APC as at the time of his nomination.
Can PDP still maintain that he was still a member of APC, having derived a judgment from the courts pronouncing specifically that the governor had actually left PDP and joined APC. So these are the matters we have presented to the court. And like always, it's for my lords, their lordships in their infinite wisdom to lay down and tell us what the law is.
It appears the federal government may just have incurred a new judgment debt following the award of 100 million naira in favor of the former central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, in a fundamental human rights suit. Justice Lukayode Adeniyi of the Federal High Court of FCT High Court Abuja gave the award for the violation of his right to personal liberty and also declared his prolonged detention by the EFCC without trial as what they consider a flagrant violation of his fundamental right. It also restrained the federal government and its agent from rearresting or detaining Mr. Emefiele without an order of court. The former CBN boss, who had asked for 1 billion naira as damages, was arrested on June the 10th, 2023, shortly after a suspension by President Bola Tinubu. You know all that story. Meanwhile, the EFCC says it will appeal the judgment, maintaining that Mr. Emefiele's detention followed duly obtained court order. Now, a documentary has revealed how 25 persons gave eyewitness accounts over allegations of sexual assault, physical abuse, staged miracles, and trauma allegedly suffered in the hands of late televangelist Prophet T.B. Joshua. The three-part documentary of the BBC chronicles the experiences of the said victims during the life of one of Africa's most influential pastors. Prophet Joshua was popular for his miracle, which claimed to have delivered followers and visitors of many ailments, including cancer, HIV/AIDS, to blindness. The cleric, who died on June the 5th, 2021, at the age of 57, was the founder of the Synagogue Church of All Nations in the Cotton area of Lagos State, where he lived. Alongside his many followers, the church is yet to respond to all of that allegation. Let's talk some business now. 4% is how much the U.S. crude oil has declined on after Saudi Arabia slashed its prices, evoking concerns over what they consider supply in the market at the same time as demand is weakening. The West Texas Intermediate, known as the WTI futures contract for February, lost about $3 to settle at $70.77 per barrel. The Brent futures contract for March shed $2. now sells for $76 a barrel. The sell-off comes after Saudi Aramco on Sunday sharply lowered the price of Arab Light crude to Asian customers by $2 per barrel. Let's stay outside our shores. A top Islamist movement Hezbollah commander, Wissam Tawil, has been killed by Israel in a strike in southern Lebanon after his car was targeted. His death is said to have inflicted a major blow on the group's operations after 3 months of hostilities at the Lebanese-Israeli frontier. Tawil was the commander of Hezbollah's elite Radwan forces and the most senior Hezbollah officer killed so far in the conflict after directing his operations in the south. Let's talk football and sports in general. The world of football actually is mourning as tributes continue to pour in for German soccer legend Frank Beckenbauer, who died at 78. He was widely regarded as one of the finest footballers of all time and one of the only 3 men to have won the World Cup both as a player and a manager. With 104 caps for his West Germany team, he led the team to glory at the 1974 World Cup, repeating the feat as manager in Italy 16 years later. Beckenbauer won numerous other awards and honors, including a hat-trick of European Cups with Bayern Munich in mid-70s, and later became widely known as what they call Der Kaiser. Guys, there's a lot going on in the world, and these are just some of the things we were able to capture top on the brief this morning. What stood out for you at the end of all of these stories you listened to?
Good morning, Jeffrey, morning. First of all.
Yes.
You're looking good, by the way.
Thank you.
Well done.
I had to simulate Coyote somehow. I was scared initially, but I had to take the risk. I said, I got to use this style.
And it paid off.
It paid off.
Thank
you, by the way. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Coyote Kikiolu. I don't know, Bukola, ladies first, what stood out for you?
Well, first of all, good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to the program. I am Bukola Koka. And Coyote, that's suspect. That is very suspect.
Why am
I going first?
I mean no harm.
Okay.
It's too early.
Okay. So let's proceed, guys. For me, it was that big story from yesterday about the Minister of Interior providing an explanation about how his government received payment for consultancy services from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. And let's start with the bright side. A lot is happening in the Ministry of Interior, so we must commend the minister for giant strides being achieved in that ministry. Yes, some Nigerians would say, the minister is doing what he's expected to do, by the way, so why the commendation? But it could be business as usual in the Ministry of Interior. The backlog of passports could still have been there, and Nigerians would be queuing and waiting endlessly, for the release of their passports. The prisons could have remained congested, but the minister has entered into partnerships that are seeing the payment of fines, particularly for those awaiting trial. And, from March the 8th, you would no longer have to be physically present for biodata. Now let's go to, the story that's trending. Again, we must commend the minister for coming out to provide an explanation about what exactly the participation of his company is about. But I have one more question for the Minister of Interior.
Go ahead, Bukola.
Yes, and it's not far-fetched, it's simple. His wife is still the director of that company, and questions will be asked about how the company secured the contract in the first place. If we look at the public service rule books thoroughly, we'll find something about nepotism, we'll find something about conflict of interest. So if he had no participation, fantastic. If he had no participation in how that company secured contract, because he's still a shareholder, although he's no longer a director in the company. So if somehow is remotely connected to how that company secured that contract, then he must still have some questions to answer. But he said that if that company is found culpable, then the rules should take the natural course, and prosecution investigation should be done. So for me, that story. Now it will be instructive about how the federal government would address this, particularly because here we have a vibrant ministry, and then there is, some sort of conflict of interest. Well, we wait to see how the president would address this.
I think this just raises that age-long issue. You call it conflict of interest, and we've seen that play out time and again. You see people in the civil service having companies that take contracts, and I've done a lot of investigation in that light, and some of these things are actually brazen. And you wonder, the rules are there for a reason, so people actually do these things and get away with it. But as you said, the minister has given some insight, but you have more questions to ask him.
Yeah.
And you put out those questions. And I imagine Nigerians have those questions as well. And it's important, in the spirit of transparency and accountability, to answer those questions.
I mean, it leaves little to the imagination. They're all members of this political party, All Progressives Congress, the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and the Minister of Interior. So, based on relationship, calls could be put through, can we get this contract? But that needs to go through investigation.
Well, he has, I know, he's citing a few things, because sometimes I like to look at what the law says. But if you listen to the complete interview, because I listened to some of the things he said, is the lawyers that will be able to interpret that, and then the civil service rule will be able to apply whether or not is meant to even be involved in that company in any shape or form. But he's arguing that 2019, I founded that company about 15 years ago. 2019, I won the election, and I'd resigned from that company as a board member. He's arguing that nothing stops him from owning shares in the company. So I don't know what the law says about that. But he's also indemnifying himself that, look, I'm not part of that entity, because if you look at the CAC rulebook or the CAC Act, there's a phrase they always use when it comes to company, that it's going to be body corporate with perpetual seal. That it separates the company from the individual, which is why they use the word limited liability company. Yeah. So if anything happens, they don't take. So he's citing all of that to say that, okay, I'm not a member, I'm not a part of this company under the law, so why am I being called and all of that? But as you said, Nigerians will be watching and will be saying, it's just not so beautiful that we're seeing two things happen at the same time. He's brought a lot of innovation into the system. He's cleared backlogs, as you said. Now, you see, when I was reading, I was quite excited. I had to pause. I'm like, is this real, that I'm going to be in my house and passport will be delivered to me? And in fact, Nigerians should actually film when that happens, because we don't just need to say negative stories. These are positives as well. So him being in the eye of the storm, given this situation, is not to be desired at all. But the law will take its course. I'm sure that the president is watching, and everybody involved is watching. Eventually, let's see how that plays out at the end of the day.
Well, we hope so. What stood out for me, guys, naturally, first, what happens next to the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs? We've asked, and I think we said that just before we came on the show, have we seen a suspended minister being reinstated?
It's a rare case.
It's really rare, but I recall during the Buhari administration, there were some heads of MDAs that were suspended and reinstated. I think NHIS.
That was early 2015, or at the onset of the administration.
That was 2018, 2018 or thereabouts. And I think there was NBET as well, 2020. And then I think the court also had an issue with SEC DG, asking that he be reinstated at that time. So we've seen that. But for ministers, not quite. So we'll wait to see. And the passport conversation, of course, it's always big for Nigerians. But I do hope that this is also the year we fix how our passport is perceived globally. I was looking at the ranking. We ranked about 90th.
You went again to that side.
Because
yesterday was field.
I think we should be holistic, really. It's good to point those good stories out.
You yet again.
Well, but, I mean, it is what it is.
Okay,
ranking
so Madam
90th.
Suspicion now.
No, you're a journalist.
But this is a fact. Ranking 90th on the list of countries with the most visa-free access to other nations. It's not palatable. Ranking with South Sudan. It's not what we want to see. So I do hope that this is the year we fix that as well. It's good we have our passports, but then we need to ensure that the nation that carries that passport, that identity of the nation, is also sorted. And I'm talking corruption, insecurity, and the rest. We need to ensure that our passport is actually respected. I don't want to be queuing on a separate line.
You don't want to know. It's quite sad. Well, that's not all we have for you, not just the top stories. We also have what you should look out for on the show today. One of which is the fact that the president has been in office for 8 months or thereabout. So when you look at the president performance, what does it do to you? How will you rate the president? How will you score him? When you look at his performance, will it make you squirm on your seat, or the appointers say, okay, he did pretty well? Well, we got a big panel for you. Probably for the very first time in a long while. I've never seen this happen in a long while. And all female young politicians from the APC PDP and the Labour Party will be going head-to-head to assess how well President Bola Tinubu has done in the past year and looking forward to what he can do in the year 2024 going forward.
Now, besides politics, we'll also be looking into the tech space. Your device is a lot more valuable, a lot more useful than you already know and then you're already deploying it to. And that speaks a lot to me, you know. A number of us who are described as not tech savvy. So, obsolescence appears to be the business model of tech companies who produce mobile phones, but the big question is, are you even utilizing a tenth of what your gadget can do, especially your mobile phone, besides socials and pictures? A gentleman who knows quite a lot about that will be our guide this morning. I'll be putting us through how to use our Android and our iOS phones, you know, more maximally, so to speak. You know, the other day we had some guests, music video directors, and one thing that was instructive that he said that all you need to be a music video director is to own an iPhone, you know, and I just had to think twice about my device. Kayode.
What? Well, plus on the show today, going for gold. Yes, the Super Eagles of Nigeria are poised for gold. Well, in this case, for that cup. So, are they ready to fly in Cote d'Ivoire at the AFCON and break a 10-year jinx? Well, our sports correspondent will provide all the details as we wait with bated breath. But hey, no pressures, as we always say. They lost to Guinea yesterday 2-0, but hey,
Still no pressure.
No pressure. And that's not all. But we'll keep track, besides keeping track on the Super Eagles, besides keeping track on what is going on, what's going to happen in Cote d'Ivoire. We've always said no pressure. We'll do our best to wear the jersey to make sure we support you.
Maybe you guys come up with another line. Because we've already recorded one loss.
There's plenty of pressure.
We're also going to be keeping track with what's happening on the third mainland bridge.
Yes.
The partial closure takes effect today. So our correspondents will be all over the place to make sure that we get to see what is happening at the third mainland bridge. But that is not all. We're also keeping track on what you are saying across social media. So what you can do to be part of the conversation is just to tweet at us at CTV Morning Brief to get on the show. So whatever is going on, tweet at us on X and ensure that we have you on the show. Guys, it's a perfect way to start your morning. We got you covered everywhere, anywhere you turn. So it's a show that you wouldn't want to miss. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on the morning brief. Well, this is exactly where we check out what you've been saying across the social media, especially X. It's funny, Bukola, that we have to say tweets at us on X. I don't know how that works, but
you know, just like Twitter has character, if there's any social media platform that has a reputation, you know, sometimes some people call it savage. You know, I think it's X, and it's never going to lose that other name, you know, tweet. A lot of people still go by Twitter.
All right, so we want to find out what you've been saying. Let's focus on what they've been talking about concerning the Emefiele story. This is coming from Sonny Angel at Poly2570. Say, FG is not done with Emefiele yet. He should drink water and sit back. I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe, Bukola, you will interpret or will interpret later.
Maybe if we went by what the councils of the federal government is saying, that they're going to appeal it, that they got a valid court order, you know, to detain him. So let's see what, you know, the courts will say in the coming days. Well, we still have more of your comments. This one is coming from at Lazy Reporter at Savage Mouth, 2 Twitter handles, X handles, you see, it never goes away. And what's he saying? In fact, I wonder what kind of country we are. Is the court blind? But no, because of what they will benefit from it. The same court gave directive to past administration, which Emefiele was in charge, CBN, to extend deadline for old note, but they refused. Where was court then? I guess what he's saying, or they're saying, is about obeying court orders. They're waiting to see whether this indeed will be obeyed.
All right, but let's not allow people to disparage our courts as well as impugn on their integrity. So we must put that clear. There's another tweet coming from Lazy Reporter, also Savage Mount. He said, this is a very short tweet. Still on the Emefiele story. He said, when FG1 pay, they play. All right. Bukola?
When FG1 obey.
Is it one? No, it's one pay.
Yeah.
They play.
What I mean is I'm trying to interpret it. So when they won't obey the court order.
Okay.
Okay, so actually that last tweet was from Fada C. Isaiah, and yours is from the Savage, the Lazy Reporter. Let's go to the next one. This one is from Godwin Oscar, and he says, to award 100 million naira to Emefiele is one thing, but to obey the court order is another thing. Welcome to Nigeria.
Well, the court has said, the agency of government, the federal government has said, we validly restrained his movement, detained him, and all the restrictions we had to put him through. So we'll definitely approach the same court to say, look, we did what was right. You cannot tell us to go and pay 100 million, because that is just increasing the amount we're paying in terms of judgment debt, which is why I was saying that we may have incurred another judgment debt of 100 million naira when we're still looking for money as a country. So, hey, that's coming from Cyprus. Let's move on to the Betta Edu suspension tweet. This is coming from, his name is Vincent Okeke, but he's known on tweets on X as Saint Vin. Okay, Saint_Vin. I am really impressed, really impressed. Everyone will sit up.
And in the same vein, Comrade Abios Ronnie, who goes by the name Abam Abios, he says, now the president is active. He did the right thing. You
know, this is what people have been saying. Sometimes all the government has to do to rebuild public trust and confidence is just to act. That is the right thing the president has done, we must admit. Whether Betta Edu is guilty or she's not guilty, that will be a subject of the outcome of the investigations by the right agency who are taking on that responsibility at the end of the day. But the right thing to do is, step aside so that the agency can do their work. If you're not found guilty, the president will make a decision on how to go forward with you. If you're found guilty, the law will take its course. So there have been an uproar, a lot of shouts, a lot of this to say, President acts now to save and rebuild the integrity of this government, because, you know, public trust and is very low in terms of how citizens see their government. The deficit in terms of trust is quite high. So some of this action, maybe not, will begin to rebuild our trust. Let's move on now. This Usman Carrero, I beg your pardon. It's great to see the president is taking swift action to address the situation, and it's encouraging to hear you think he did the right thing. Do you think this is indicative of how he will handle similar situations in the future? Well, that's a big question. I don't have the answer. Yeah, well, just to support the point about how it also, engender performance in other ministries, and also help other ministers to be above board in their conduct. Well, this one is from at Royal Spotlight. For everyone expecting mighty things from this government, sorry to disappoint you, Betta Edu is only just a tip. She was suspended to let you know Tinubu is working. What of the ones we don't hear or see? If the finest egg is bad, it is possible all are bad. She's just 37, a youth. Well, I'm trying to understand what exactly Royal Spotlight is trying to tell us now. Let's quickly rush through the next tweet on X. Johnny Yano, or Joy44, says, the Betta Edu suspension is a normal first step before investigation. President Tinubu got this right. So, hey, those are comments coming from you. We advise and we appeal to you to keep it coming. We'll be reading it. This is how you can be part of the conversation, part of the show as much as possible, because we keep going there to check out to see what you are doing. Well, we will be switching this conversation to another level. Let's join my colleague Kayode, who is seated and waiting for us. And we also appeal to our viewers to be kind in their comments.
Welcome back from X.
Yes, we're back from X. And it's going to be, we did talk about the fact that there's going to be a big conversation today on the show in terms of governance, assessing President Bola Tinubu's performance. boy, assessing President Bola Tinubu's performance in terms of governance, in terms of anti-corruption, and every other sector. And that's why we had to bring an it's a rare situation, but I'm excited. I'm sure people like Bukola, she's quite excited because she's...
I'm always excited, by the way.
You know why
Jeffrey?
I said you are excited? So we are advocates for women to be in politics and in governance. In fact, I personally want to see a female president someday. Kayode, wouldn't you want to see a female president? Let's just try a woman for once.
Well, I'm happy that I have some he for she's as colleagues and brothers on set, and I'm sure that it's also going to reflect in our conversation this morning. We'll also be scrutinizing, that part of the development of the last 48 hours, the suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. I hope that we can also talk about it as objectively as possible, not necessarily because we're he for she.
So I'm always trying to avoid putting that female president. Let's have the best president. May the best man, may the best woman.
I stay on what I said. Let's try a woman out and see how it goes.
Absolutely.
In Nigerian parlance, they say, make we check something. All right, let's check it out. Well, we have an all-female panel to explore this conversation. They'll be going head-to-head. Select from the APC, from the PDP, and from Labour Party, as we will assess the performance of President Bola Tinubu, as well as what plans he has for Nigeria. Joining us in our Abuja studio is a media entrepreneur and executive director, Jella Orchid Media, member of the People's Democratic Party, Ms. Oluchi Nwosu. Ms. Nwosu, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year.
All right. Also, just seated by her is an entrepreneur and media consultant, former spokesperson of Betta Presidential Campaign Council, special advisor, media and publicity to Senator Ireti Kingibe, Ms. Nana Kazore. Ms. Nana Kazore, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
And joining us virtually all the way from Akwa Ibom State via Zoom is a community development advocate, coordinator, APC Professional Women Council, Akwa Ibom State, member of the APC, Ima Akpan. Ima Akpan, thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Good morning from Akwa Ibom State.
All right, fantastic. An all-female panel. So let's get started with the very recent development. I'm going to have your take on the recent development across board. So, Ima, the government in power is the party you belong to. What's your immediate response to the action so far taken by the president concerning the Dr. Betta Edu situation?
Yes, thank you. It just shows how sensitive the president is. We've had situations in this country where citizens shouted themselves hoarse, and some leaders just were not that responsive we expected them to be. But we've seen that the President Bola Tinubu, will not allow sacred cows to exist in his administration, in his government. And the fact that he has listened and taken an abrupt step, he has acted very quickly. It just shows that he's listening, and it shows he's sensitive to what Nigerians are saying, he's feeling the pulse of the nation indeed. And that's the leader we voted for. So far, across board, people are proud of the step he took, and it just shows that we are in the right step on accountability. So it's very much welcome. You ask me.
All right, let's go to Abuja studios. I did say I will have your take on this. The APC and the Labour Party, I think, as well as the NNPP, constitute about 14 million of those who did not want the president to be president, in terms of the data from INEC at the end of the day. But given the president's action, what's your impression? Let me start with Oluchi Nwosu.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Please, go ahead, please. We can hear you loud and clear.
First and foremost, I would start by saying that the actions of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is acknowledged in the sense that we have seen, we have read that he did ask that Betta Edu be suspended immediately. However, to say that he deserves commendation or some form of applause is it doesn't sit well with me, because I mean, if you have a house and someone spills maybe liquid milk or anything on the floor, you know that if you don't clean it up, it has a tendency of not only making a mess, it has a tendency of having an unpleasant or offensive smell. So him asking Betta Edu to be suspended is just doing what he's meant to do. He's meant to clean that space up where that thing was spilled. So there's nothing extraordinary about it. There's nothing that we should be clapping over. We are actually in shock that these kinds of things are actually playing out under his administration. So if you ask me, I think that I would say, yes, I acknowledge that he said she should be suspended. I have seen that he said she should be suspended, but I will not applaud him for that. That's just doing what he's meant to do.
Ms. Kazanre, will you also toe that line? You will not applaud the president as well?
Well, I would just say in this regard, it's laudable that he has done what he has done. But then again, there's a question. Yesterday I was at a business dinner, and there were people who had the concern that is it because they are women that it has been easy for him to be able to suspend so far and 2 women and then bring one to the EFCC. We haven't seen that happen in other fields. For example, what happened in Plateau State. For example, what happened in Kaduna State in matters of security. I haven't seen the willpower from his office that he is actually interested in fighting corruption. Like the first lady, the lady before me, Oluchi, just said, it's very, very clear that he's just doing his job. There are a plethora of things that have happened in past governments that have not been investigated, and even now. So there was a ministerial retreat. So are we going to say that the people who sat at that very expensive retreat didn't learn anything while they were there, that such errors are being made? We have the situation with Nigerian Air, for example. They've been quiet about that. So I'm very curious to know what next.
Absolutely, and that's one of the questions that we asked as well at the start of the program, how the government, the presidency, will handle this alongside other issues. But, you know, I'm glad we have an all-female panel this morning. And first of all, I'm coming to you, Mrs. Akpan. Before the suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, there was also the suspension of the Director General of the agency, what's her name now? Amina Shehu. And before that, we've also had that the EFCC is investigating the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. How much of a setback is this for women in politics? Because they are all female, and we know that there is a dearth of women participation in politics, you know, from successive administrations. So how much of a setback is this for women participation in politics? Also, the very strong belief that this is just for the optics, you know, that there's corruption in all the ministries. As a matter of fact, the perception is that, you know, many of these appointees and elected public office holders, even at the legislature, have companies that participate from government, that benefit rather from government contracts. So respond to those two issues. Mrs. Akpan, I'm starting with you.
All right. You know, it's usually very interesting that whenever a woman does a thing that men, you know, find themselves doing, people go the extra length to feel like women do not deserve to be given more opportunities. And I do not seem to understand it, because this is human beings who commit errors, and they should be assessed and judged on the basis of the fact that they are humans, not because they are women. There are men who, make mistakes, commit errors, go the left, and they are not. Nobody says men should not be given more opportunities, either in government or in any other sector of life. So why do we keep having a conversation of women? Why should more women be given opportunities? That is not the question. It is an issue of a human being, whether the person is a male or the person is a female. It's a case of a human being who made mistakes and should be assessed on his or her individuality. So I think doors should not be closed against women because one woman or two women had, committed errors. They should be assessed, based on their individualities. The same way we have men, whether they're young or old, who make mistakes, who commit crimes, and they're assessed on the level of their individuality. So please, there are women who are doing well in government, in business, and everywhere else. There are also men who are doing well. And so when human beings make mistakes, please let them be assessed on the basis of their person. And of course, let it be streamlined to exactly what they did.
Well, your point has been well noted, Mrs. Akpan, but the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs has only been suspended. The investigation has not been concluded to determine whether she's guilty or not. But your point is well noted. Let me bring the same question to Mrs. Oluchi. I'd like you to respond to it as well. Yeah. Mrs. Oluchi. Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay, first, I do not believe that I object, let me use the word, I object to people addressing issues from the angle of gender, especially when it comes to offenses and crimes. Stealing, allegations on stealing should be addressed as an offense because it is actually an offense. Anybody can commit an offense. I do not subscribe to headlines. I've seen people report on the incident and I see 3 women. I see another woman, and I'm wondering, we've had cases of men in this country. In fact, most of the cases of corruption that we have are men. Why? Because we have more men in the space. I would want to say that the space is naturally hostile or not very open to women. So it's I can understand why when there's an issue, they tend to pick on women. But is it right? It is wrong. I can give you an example. Some years back, we had the case of a certain Ahmed Idris, who was alleged to have been involved in some form of looting, corruption, and to the tune of 109 billion naira. And the EFCC confirmed that he was able to return only 30 billion. Did we report that as man steals 109 billion naira? No, we addressed him as a person and then his office. So please, I would want going forward for Nigerians to address this issue as, okay, there's the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Betta Edu, is alleged to have done this thing. I understand that previously, like before she came into office, another woman was there. But it doesn't give people the right to want to, bring some form of gender bias, gender violence into it. It's unacceptable. So regardless of which side of the political carpet I stand, I do not subscribe to that line of narrative.
Interesting point there. Nana Kazare, you're next. Do you agree that, the way it's been reported is an approach that picks on women? But more realistically, doesn't it reduce the numbers of female politicians? Nana Kazare.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. If it was to go ahead to reduce the numbers of women politicians, then you would know and agree that then women are being picked on. Like both speakers before me have said, it is an individual error, and she has been alleged to have done things in a certain way that is wrong and repugnant to everything that somebody in her standing as a minister should stand for. So it's an individual offense. It should not be something that should now be placed on women. After all, the deplorable state in which we find our country, it has been run by men and not necessarily women. So I totally disagree that women should now, all of us should have our heads on the chopping block because of the error of a very minute percentage of women. Women do well in entrepreneurship, women do well in medicine, women are doing extremely well in education sector, women are doing very well in many other sectors, and they should be recognized for doing well. If 1, 2, 3 women have done the wrong thing, that's on them, and it's already, the authorities have taken note of it. I'm very glad that Oluchi here also mentioned, because I was going to mention the 109 billion naira of the former Accountant General of the Federation. And these numbers are so staggering. What you hear has been stolen from the Nigerian coffers. And let's not even beat this matter too much. Women have done exceedingly well. We have women like Aisha Mohammed, we have women like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and the list goes on and on. And so I thoroughly disagree that women should now be thrown under the bus because of these incidents. Thank you very much.
Right. I mean, while that case is still in court, we'll continue to follow to see the eventual outcome. But quite important points you all have raised, not just for women, for young people as well, because the minister, the suspended minister, is also a young person, represents young people. And I've seen that a lot of people are against that particular, coloration, young women, what have you. Just deal with the case as it is. But let me switch the order now, and I'll begin with you, Nana, for this set of questions. Your principal, Peter Obi, during the presidential campaigns and elections, had alternatives for government. And both of you and Oluchi, have said that, well, we shouldn't necessarily commend President Tinubu for this action. It's essentially what he's meant to do. So I wonder, is there a different way that you think Mr. Peter Obi will have approached this issue, the alleged corruption and security particularly, because you provide alternative to government? So would he have done things differently? If he would, how?
Well, okay, let me start with the first part. Like both of us have agreed right here in the studio, the president hasn't done anything that we should be, doing cartwheels for. He has done his job, and that's laudable, like we've already said. So if Peter Obi was sitting here, sitting on that seat, it's glaring that he would do his job and do it diligently and very well. But then he's not the one who is sitting in Aso Rock right now. He always said it during his campaigns that he would tackle security, because that's the reason why entrepreneurship and even, how do I say it now, farmer-herder issues, the list goes on and on. He always said it that if Nigeria is taken from consumption to production, it would help Nigerians to get jobs. It will make sure that people who are idle are gainfully employed. You see, the list goes on and on. I remember one time we sat and he was saying when he would, if he were to come in, he was going to ensure that subsidy would be removed, yes? But when this government decided to take away subsidy, they did it without any cushioning effect. So for example, when I'm leaving the office in the evenings, I see how stranded and how frustrated Nigerians are 8 months down the line after the very bad decision to take subsidy without doing it either in trenches and not making sure that there were transport palliatives available for Nigerians has been, it shows that they seem, I don't, for want of sounding like a broken record, they seem to be comatose to the real adverse effects that it has had on Nigerians. Not to even talk of the cost of food. How much was a bag of rice in 2022 vis-a-vis what it became in December of 2023? A bag of rice was going for approximately 70,000 naira. Now, let's even look at situations with Peter Obi, part of his manifesto. He said that, you know, salaries would be increased. The Nigerian Labour Congress has also come up with a 200,000 naira increase in salaries. The government said they would do something about it, and they've done absolutely nothing. Let's talk about the 35,000 naira.
Pardon me to button. So are you saying that Mr. Peter Obi would pay the 200,000
naira wage?
If you can hear me, Nana, I'm just asking, follow up to that point you raised. Are you saying Mr. Peter Obi would have paid 200,000 naira minimum wage, as is being requested for what we hear?
It's not about Peter Obi. Let's not steer it. It's really not about him. He's not the person that's there in government. We are there as an opposition to observe and to say when they do right, we will say that they have done right. If they haven't done right, we will say that they haven't done right. But it's not about Peter Obi. Let's steer it right back to the government that is under scrutiny right now, which is the APC. They had meetings upon meetings with the TUC and with the NLC that they would give a 35,000 naira wage. I forget the way it was put, but it
wage
was
award.
They only did it once, and the next thing it has been crickets. Nigerians haven't heard, so there seems to be an unwillingness to come to the table. Now, if Nigeria, for whatever reason, cannot afford to pay the 200,000 naira that they initially agreed to with the TUC and NLC, then they should have come back to the drawing board. Not now wait for the TUC and NLC yesterday to now start giving them a 10-point, bulletin agenda. As in, you haven't done this, you haven't done this. I haven't seen them engaged.
All right, Nana, let me go to Oluchi.
They've made promises and haven't kept those promises. It would seem as though Nigerians are being taken for a ride.
Right. Thank you, Nana. Let me go to Oluchi. Essentially, this conversation is about presenting alternatives. It's what democracy is about. And I wonder for you, for your principle, because it's important to bring these alternative ideas out, to challenge governments, to provide some sort of pool of ideas where I imagine that the government in power can pick from. So, Oluchi, what is your take on what could have been done differently? Because it's important to always speak to those. Do you think that things could have been done differently, perhaps by your principle? And if it could have been done differently, how?
Absolutely. I'll take it, before coming to my principle, I'll take you back down memory lane with my party, the People's Democratic Party. The antecedents and the journey so far. An average Nigerian would literally tell you how life was then and how life is now. Recently, data was released by, I think, StatiSense that showed performance according to administration and then other aspects. And you could see that from the time of Obasanjo down to Yaradua and then Goodluck Jonathan, the PDP performed very well. So you can't argue data. You can't gag data. So these things are actually evidential. They are things that you can literally relate to. What was the cost of living then? What's the cost of living now? There are practical examples. It doesn't even require speaking a lot of English. And to reiterate this, I would say yes, Atiku Abubakar would have done differently. First of all, for someone who you hear his name and what resonates in your mind is Atiku means jobs. People just know that they would have been gainfully employed, the system would have been better, economy would have been better with him, and then the manner of approaching issues. I don't think that Atiku Abubakar is very sensitive and to a great extent respectful. Now, that is the difference between what the APC government is doing to Nigerians and what I feel that my party being in power would have done differently. Take, for example, you remove subsidy, people are crying, people are undergoing hardship, people can barely feed, cost items in the market, everything has gone up, and right in the midst of our cries, you carried over 1,400 people out of this country in the name of attending a conference in Dubai. People that we know have no business with climate. They do not understand what is there. They have gone there, they've come back. If you ask them, they cannot tell you specifically how what they heard there can be applied here. Why did you have to do that to us and to our faces in this manner? Atiku Abubakar would never do that. The PDP has records. Unlike my sister who was speaking, she's told you what Peter Obi would have done differently. He's never been president, but my party has produced presidents, and the presidents that have come under my party have performed exceedingly well, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I know the government put out a statement to that delegation saying that, well, the federal government delegation was 422, not over 1,000, as has been said. But, of course, even the 422 for a lot of people was a lot, seeing the situation we have to grapple
Absolutely.
with. So, yes, let me go to Ima now and just get your thoughts. So they have raised some important issues. They've talked about the sensitivity of the president as it is. They've said, well, he's doing essentially what he ought to do, and they have provided some sort of alternative that their principals or their party would have, I mean, what they will have brought to table if they were in power. So I wonder for you, is this something you're taking on board as well? Because I know you've had to campaign for previous president and this president. And I imagine this is not what you promised to people. You didn't tell them that this is how much you'll be buying a bag of rice, this is how much you'll be buying petrol and the rest. So are you excited with how things are turning out? And I wonder, how do you go back to speak to those people? I'm just wondering.
I'm happy the two women in the studio have both acknowledged that their respective candidates were on the same page with our presidents regarding fuel subsidy removal. And I do not think anybody in the country who understands what fuel subsidy removal will pretend not to know the consequences of removing subsidy. All of us, we all know what to expect. It was not going to be a ride in a kindergarten's park. We knew before subsidy was removed, that or fuel subsidy in particular was removed, that we were going to go through a tough time. I'm sure when Atiku Abubakar made the promise that he was going to remove subsidy, he knew it was going to be tough. And I'm sure when Peter Obi made the same promise, he knew it was going to be tough. And so we are not in, it is not a strange thing. We are not going through any strange phenomenon. And I'd like to say, very emphatically, that the president is not an insensitive leader. He has been very conscious. He has been up to date with what is going on in the country. In fact, what I like in particular about him is he's owning up responsibility and is living up to it. He's showing leadership. As a matter of fact, last year when fuel subsidy was removed, I'm sure we are all aware that the former administration did not include him in the budget, at least to a point of at least between July and December. Subsidy was removed. Technically, in the budget, it wasn't included. So there is just no way. There's just about nothing the president would have done when he came in. I mean, the current president. And so, but he has taken charge. He has also addressed Nigerians that indeed there was a need to have removed. And let's just face it. This is like a case of all of us in a house that is burning, that is getting, raised down. It is either you stay in and perish, or you run out and somehow get to build another house. And so we all knew the attendant effects of removal of subsidy. And while the president is mindful, and of course he's been taking steps to ensure that the effects are cushioned, and these steps may not necessarily be enough, and indeed they are not enough. There is just no way you can give palliatives to over 200 million people and it to be sufficient. He has acknowledged that, but then you can see that he is willing to tackle these challenges head on. For example, in January, he has given an approval of 75 billion naira facility, to be given as loans to small and medium scale enterprises. The least should be receiving 1 million naira and the most 10 million naira. this should go a long way to stimulate the economy. So he is not unmindful. He has taken more steps, and of course, this is just a temporary situation. No one is comfortable about it. No leader will be comfortable about the pains, his people are going through. But we accept that it is a temporary situation, and we need to let Nigerians know that all of us should keep our eyes rather, on the larger picture, which is the outcome of the fuel subsidy removal eventually in our lives. For example, the monthly allocation to state government definitely are increased. So by that, it means more money goes to the state. And there are other steps the president is taking, such as partnership with Chinese companies to bring to rebuild a new steel company in Nigeria. You know what that means? And then there are so many other strategic steps he's taken to ensure that the economy is boosted. And regularly, you see, he's in touch. He's meeting with different stakeholders. He's consulting at different levels. And you can see he is very active in ensuring that the pains and the sufferings of Nigerians are alleviated. We are only calling for a bit more understanding so we can go through this period, a bit seamlessly while we achieve and, of course, reap the overall benefit in the long haul.
All right.
That's my...
but you have to do a lot of the heavy lifting because your government is in power, so you have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So you can see why most of these questions are directed at you, because at least for the next 4 years, President Tinubu is going to be in charge of government. And he said in his January 1st broadcast that since he became, from the time he was a senator to becoming governor for 8 years in Lagos State to now president, his passion has always been to, close that inequality gap. But we've seen his policy widen that inequality gap. Inflation is very high. We've not seen the December number, but we expect it to come up higher, beyond the 28.2. Cost of living, food inflation is about 32%, so we can go on and on with the data. We've also seen the situation, the carnage on the plateau, so we can cite different situations. So when he says things like, it is my passion to close this inequality gap, when you juxtapose that with the reality we face, that, bear with us, these are temporary issues, this pain will give room for gain. Do you think Nigerians believe him?
Yes, I know a lot of Nigerians understand the situation. And I also know a lot of Nigerians believe that he has that capacity. As a matter of fact, Jeff, I know the man I voted for. I do believe in him passionately. He is not just someone who emerged from nowhere. He is someone who has demonstrated leadership in different capacities. And for millions of Nigerians to have invested their vote in him, it showed we have confidence in him. And let me say this, I would like to use the analogy of a flight and turbulence. You can see sometimes, in fact, a lot of times it's it will be very uncommon to have flight attendants get jittery when we have turbulence in the skies. And it is not because they are not aware of the danger of a plane maybe falling off the skies, but more importantly, they know who is in charge of the aircraft. They have confidence in the people piloting the aircraft. And so it is with this man. We are going through turbulence right now, but I can tell you that I have, and many others do have, confidence in the man piloting the affairs of the country. With President Bola Tinubu, trust me, Nigeria is in safe hands. And we are not just talking rhetorics. We are not just talking theory. We are describing a man who has demonstrated capacity in solving tangible human problems. He is a results-oriented leader. He is someone who leads from the front. He doesn't shy away from responsibilities. And so he has folded his sleeves. He's gone to work. And that's why you can be so sure that this will not take too long. With all of the policies, with all of the drives, with where he's heading, as a matter of fact, with the objectives he's setting so far, I'm not sure these times are going to be, extended. And our sister from the PDP, representing PDP, she said that Atiku Abubakar would definitely have done better. I do not want to be reminded of a company called AFCON in Akwa Ibom State that was folded up because of Mr. Atiku Abubakar's involvement. This is not just politics. I do not. It takes a level of I don't know what level of trust she would have in an Atiku, and of course we know his antecedents, but. Well, let's not go too political. One thing is sure: President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a leader that can be trusted. He has demonstrated capacity in taking care of in solving problems, and that's actually what he's good at. With Nigeria's economy, I'm very sure we're going to be better for everyone in a very short time. That's certain. And so I'm enjoining Nigerians, especially entrepreneurs, to please key into the 75 billion naira facility that's going to be made available starting from this January. I imagine what all of that will mean. By the time 1 million or between 1 to 10 million naira goes into the hands of thousands and millions of Nigerians, and there's going to be revenue production. It's going to scale down. It's going to boost economy. It's going to it's going to increase national productivity. And we know we didn't come here by chance. We didn't get to this point by chance. There were lots of situations that happened in the past administrations, and especially even in the PDP time. Let's not go into when we had crude oil reserves that were higher at that time, and then we had so much extreme depletion. But let's not go there. You can trust President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's for sure.
I'm going to throw this question straight to Nana and Oluchi. Simple, straight question. Ima Bong has been screaming, you need to trust this president. Do you trust this president in any shape or form, given a few things? Maybe, I know you didn't vote for him apparently, but have you seen anything like, okay, let me just give this man a little chance? Do you trust this president by any shape or form? I see you laughing. Let me start with you, Nana.
Together.
The question is for both of you.
No, okay. You want to go first?
Let me speak first because I'm actually laughing at the question. No, I do not trust this president.
Absolutely not.
First and foremost, the process that brought him is still questionable to me.
Why?
The matters that came from his candidacy and then his emergence as president stands to be questioned, even till tomorrow. I don't even want to, Ima Bong my sister from Akwa Ibom was saying she didn't want to go into certain things. If I have to go into the Chicago matter, I would want to be, am I even supposed to be having this conversation about Mr. President? Because I term the process that brought him as not being straight. It's for me, when we have questions of whether your name is A or is B, it tends to put me off. So you have the question of integrity of both the person and the process that produced him. That is one. Number two, I want to also, she said something about a pilot, trusting a pilot and flights and all of that. Thankfully, I have knowledge of some things that has to do with flying. Yes. As a child, as a teenager, I worked very closely with one of my uncles who is a captain in the aviation industry. And I want to tell you that one of the things that I will never forget, even as a child, that stuck to my head was when he went for one of those solo flights and came back and said he was being punished. And I was asking why an adult, my uncle, being punished. And I saw him writing, I will always fly altitude. I will always fly altitude. I will always, and I kept asking what that meant. And it just meant, it means that as a pilot, you need to operate on a certain frequency. You need to be at a certain height. Now, you cannot be telling me to trust somebody who is meant to be piloting something that I expect to have that training that kicked off and maybe is flying lower than he's meant to fly. And you're telling me not to question him. You're asking me to trust. I do not trust him. I'm scared for my life. I go to the market. I do not trust him because what I bought yesterday is not the same price. I do not trust him because I'm walking on the road. I have the tendency of being... We've never had it this bad in the FCT before when it comes to surge in crime rate and insecurity. And that's because you cannot take away the fact that Nigerians are actually undergoing hardship. They are hungry. They are tired. Ordinarily, things that they would have found, to do and just lay their hands on and make money out of it, they do not see these things. And then the little things, they can't even eat. Survival is a problem. So you can't be telling me to trust someone who I feel... You're telling me... Nigerians should take it easy. They are doing while you're doing consultation, I am dying. And in that aircraft that she gave an example, there may be turbulence, yes, but while there's turbulence, there are supposed to be measures that you put in place to make sure that your passengers don't freak out. To also help, why do we have oxygen? Why do we have other things there? We've not seen, with this government, we've not seen oxygen. We've not seen anything to relieve us. We can't even find soup.
Oluchi, if I may button.
You removed subsidy. That was so brash.
Oluchi, if I may button, I know you're firing from all cylinders. Let's switch gears to Nana. Nana, same question.
Same question, no. The answer is a resounding, absolute no. And that's very, very simple. We've been told, Nigerians have been told time and time again, tighten your seatbelt, tighten your seatbelt. Nigerians have been told to take it easy. Nigerians have been told, I do not trust a man who, after there's been a bombing in Kaduna State, and it was the military's error, there's been nobody has been called to book, not the perpetrators and not even those who were in charge. That gives me reason for pause. Number two, while that happened, he went all the way to Borno State, and the next thing he says is that it was an act of God. So we blame the insecurity situation in Nigeria on God, and that's the person we have been asked to trust. I've not seen the president do anything that has alleviated the sufferings of Nigerians. Be it in the educational sector, we know how deplorable the situation is. Look at how many Nigerian youth are leaving the country on a daily basis. There are just so many things. Where do we want to start? And I don't know if he realizes that in 2027 there's a scorecard waiting for him. You can't ask Nigerians to keep trusting. You can't, because people can barely pay school fees for their children because of the ripple effect of the high cost of living. It's preposterous. Insecurity in Abuja, there are incessant kidnappings, there are incessant, cases of theft, there are incessant cases of people going into transport, we call it in local parlance, one chance. And we keep right here under his nose in the FCT, and then we're still being told to trust his process. After 8 months, give us one thing that he has done right in 8 months to alleviate the situation of the average Nigerian. I do not think he's in touch with the grassroots. I do not think he's in touch with those who earn minimum wage. No. I don't think he's in touch with what is really going on in Nigeria. And I was very glad when one of you mentioned that it's about 14 million of us didn't vote for him. So he has, yes, it's an uphill task for him, and he ought to, realize, because what they don't realize is that the youth who galvanize themselves, call it the obedient movement, those question-asking youth will still be youthful in 2027. There's a lot of work to be done. Right now, it's just rhetorics. Yes, Ima in Akwa Ibom said it is not, but I put it to her that that's just exactly what it is. He needs to steer the country in the right direction. He should take one course, just one charge. be it education, be it the economy, because Nigeria cannot thrive. When you go online, you see where people are saying it very, very clearly, because they do not trust this president. They say it clearly that corruption cannot fight corruption. And Oluchi has listed all the things that make Nigerians even shudder at the fact that that is the person who's sitting at the helm of affairs. Oh well.
Well,
I do not want to belabor the issue, but these are very, very, chronic issues that affect everybody.
Indeed.
No, I do not trust. I do not trust.
Indeed. Thank you, Nana. Ima, I'm coming to you now. If the scale of the weight you had to lift initially was 10, I imagine now it's gone up to about 50. And I'm going to, follow up on that same point about accountability that Jeff has raised. If we're going to scrutinize the administration, based on even the 2024 budget proposal, we've seen how the National Assembly has increased its own allocation. We saw, from the headlines, what was allocated to the office of the presidency, what was allocated as amount for the purchase of vehicle, even to the office of the First Lady. And Nigerians also cry foul over the convoy of Mr. President, and they talk about how this is in huge contrast to the charge on tightening their belts, patience with the administration, and I'd just like you to respond to that as well. If indeed the administration is leading by example when it charges Nigerians to be patient over a period of time, while the policies that it is putting in place gives life to the economy. Don't you see the contrast to yourself?
Well, I do agree with you that sacrifices need to be made, especially from the top. I definitely am on the same page with you on that. Our leaders, starting with the president, with National Assembly members, the president, of course, with his entire cabinet, the National Assembly members, the state governors, the House of Assembly members, leaders need to lead by example, of course, and this sacrifice should start actually from them. And then, being that as it may, I would like to say that nation building is a collective duty. In fact, I've been curious to know what, let's say, the Labour Party senators, the Labour Party House of Reps members, for example, have done differently in the National Assembly. Because when people chant what this party has done, what this other party has not done, we would like to see practically what you're bringing to the table as a different path, right?
Oh dear, it's as if we've lost connection through to Ima, but we'll try to restore it so that she can conclude on her points. I'm going to take this now to Oluchi. I know that you're going to have quite a lot to say, but while you're responding to it, Oluchi, also bear in mind, that sometimes, not sometimes, annually when these budgets come up and it draws reactions, about criticisms about why such huge amounts are allocated to, some arms of government. They say that these budgets are prepared traditionally by civil servants, and it's not new, and it cuts across different administrations. And we've had past administrations led by the PDP as well. You take that, Oluchi, later on, but Ima is back. Let Ima conclude on her point now. Ima, go ahead.
All right. So I look forward to seeing leaders from Labour Party do things differently, right? So if the people in the studio, for example, are saying that the APC are way out of it, what is the difference? What's valuable difference are people, representatives from Labour Party, from the PDP? What's the difference they're bringing, right? What are they doing differently? But I've actually emphasized here that I agree with you that we need to see the president, his cabinet make sacrifices for the country on a personal note, and then let it trickle down to the very grassroots. And also, it seems to me that so much effort usually and focus is on the president. We tend to most times forget about what the state governors are doing. And then the funds of this country most of the times goes to the states. It goes to the states. And then most state governors sit on these funds without making these funds trickle down to the grassroots. For example, if the governors are allowing funds that is meant for the local government councils to go to local government councils, you can't believe how much poverty will be eliminated at the grassroots level. But we hardly focus on governors. Every time it's always the president. Of course, the president is not shying away. He keeps acknowledging that the buck indeed stops, on his desk. And so while the president is doing his bit, and we expect him to do more, we are also saying that accountability should be held of leaders at other strata, such as the state governors.
Yes, right. Thank you, Ima. Oluchina, the same question goes to you, but can past administrations, particularly of the PDP, be absolved of this same lifestyle and allocations to the different arms of government? Oluchi, it's for you now.
I'll keep my response very simple. And you recall that when we started on this conversation, I made reference to the fact that we have data on ground. And you cannot argue data. You can't argue evidence of work. You can't argue things that have been established. You cannot compare the years of the PDP to what we have right now in the APC. It's there, it's verifiable. Do you want to go into the Obasanjo administration or the Goodluck Jonathan administration, where we had the likes of Ngozi and all those people? Talking about the budget, you cannot address what is going on right now with the current administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu without taking it back to Buhari's administration. And it's still the APC. So what I want you to see here is there's a template for working with the APC. Corruption as it is was emboldened under Buhari, who is an APC member who functioned on the APC. Padding of budgets, we had tons of it under Buhari's administration. And most of those things went away like it didn't mean anything. When Bola Ahmed Tinubu said he was coming to improve on whatever things that Buhari did, I shook my head because I was wondering if he actually knew the antecedents of Buhari. Is it with the insecurity? Is it with the looting? Like we've never seen it before. So addressing the issue of budget, I still do not, the process with which they present the budget, the things contained in it, is still under scrutiny. We will continue to scrutinize it, and you cannot as much as compare it with the PDP. That would be like an insult, because we've been there, we have evidence on ground. They have been there for like 8 years. We also have their evidence. Compare and contrast. It's very easy to relate with.
All right. Let me take Nana as we wind down on this conversation. And I mean, I can't help but see that you're also an aide to Senator Ireti Kingibe. Essentially, you're still actively involved in governance, even though your principal did not win. But this is part of what we talk about in democracy. The opposition should have an active say as well. Maybe not have your day. But speak to this, because I know it's been big. I just checked your X handle, and, I saw that the senator did some palliative sharing recently, bags of rice to help people in the nation's capital, Abuja. And there have been questions about, is this a constituency project? Was this part of her own personal goodwill, the branding and the rest? I'd like you to speak to that controversy, because I know a lot of people were against sharing of palliative, saying, well, this is not enough, the people need more. But I'd like you to speak to the one done by Senator Kingibe, particularly.
All right, thank you for that question. It's sad that people feel that we shouldn't go the way of palliatives, because that's all the average Nigerian person has. Many people can't go to their farms. People cannot feed because of the insecurity. So agrarian communities, even within the FCT, we see that they're dwindling on a daily basis. There aren't jobs. And that is why the palliatives were done. And they're still even ongoing. It's very, very important that people receive certain palliatives to ease the general way that they have to live. It's wrong for Nigerians to be on their knees. It's wrong for Nigerians not to know where the next meal will come from. It is wrong for Nigerians not to know whether or not going from point A to B, they are safe. So I still believe that there must be palliatives given, and at every strata right now, from transportation to food, whatever can be done to alleviate the suffering of the average Nigerian woman, the average Nigerian individual, cannot be overlooked. So we should applaud those who have gone ahead to give these palliatives.
So is it
the government did release certain metric tons of rice, and I know.
So was it personal or what the federal government gave? I'm saying, was it a personal gesture? Is it a personal gesture, just to clear the air, or is part of the federal government?
No, if you listen to on another, it wasn't her personal gesture. It's rice that had been given and stored. I did say the government gave some palliatives, and it was given to all the House of Rep members and the senators. And so, yes, she's doing her own quota and ensuring that it gets to everybody's table.
All right. I want to thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful perspective that you've all brought to this conversation. And I'm super excited that everybody came with their A game to ensure that they defend their principle and their party as much as possible. I want to thank you, Oluchin, also member of the People's Democratic Party and media entrepreneur, as well as Executive Director at Dela Orchid Media. Thank you for coming on the program. Nana Kazaure, entrepreneur, media consultant, former spokesperson of the Obidati Presidential Campaign Council, special advisor, media and publicity to Senator Ireti Kingibe. Thank you for coming on the program. Also, Ima Akpan, community development advocate, coordinator, APC Professional Women Council of Akwa Ibom State, and member of the APC. Thank you, Ima, for coming on the program. I want to thank all of you for coming on the program. Thank you for coming. All right, guys. There's one question I wanted to ask, but we don't have the luxury of time, which was the issue of Momizi and feminism. But we're going to look for another day. But let's find out what you guys are saying on Twitter. We did tell you this is.
Yeah.
Yes. Kaide, maybe you can take that. Since you can see clearly.
It says, I agree with the court. You cannot detain an individual for more than 24 hours without charging to court. He should, and I think this is about the former CBN governor, saying he should be on bail while the investigation is ongoing. Once the investigation is concluded, he can now be charged to court for proper prosecution.
Well, and this one is from Dennis Ekele, I believe. Dennis says, so we should clap for Bat. What has he done exactly? He has a very huge moral burden hanging on his neck like a yoke. Sorry, the system in itself is a mess. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief.
This is coming from Central Fake. Said, Bat did well by suspending Edu. In fact, to call a spade, he has really done well in that regard. However, Edu made a mistake, which shows her incompetency. But I don't think she has actually committed a crime, so she should be pardoned. Those are your tweets. Keep them coming. We'll take them as much as we can. And that's exactly what the program is really all about, to bring you into the conversation. But we're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we did tell you that, look, your mobile phone is a lot more than you think it is. The man in the know is here to help us explain what that actually means, and talking about digital content creation and how to make the most with your devices. We're going on this break. Join us again on the Morning Brief.
He's one of your favorite YouTubers. We've brought him out of YouTube, brought him out of social media. He's right here with us in our studio. Fisayo Fusido is here this morning with his iconic turtleneck. Hi, Fisayo. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Very well. Do you ever go without your turtleneck? Just
I do.
On the side. You
sometimes.
do? I'm surprised. I'm shocked. I thought you were born with it.
I think I prefer to use it when I'm being like recorded or if I'm doing any. It's like my uniform.
Yeah,
the way doctors have
lab coats. More like branding for you.
Pretty much.
So that anybody who sees that man with the turtleneck,
exactly.
Say, okay,
exactly.
And I think it's worked really well for your brand. We're having a conversation around digital content creation, and who best to speak with than you? And we're essentially linking this to, I mean, you've been able to achieve success with everyday devices, everyday gadgets that people overlook. We have our mobile phones, we have our computers. What we use it for essentially is just go online, Google and the rest. But you started some years back with those very simple tools, and you've been able to scale up over 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. You know, you're smashing all of that, essentially living the dream. So we'd like to have this conversation, particularly for a lot of young Nigerians out there who have those tools but don't know how to go about it. So I'd like you to first start by telling us, how did you essentially scale up? What was that moment for you that you thought, wait a minute, these things are there for me to actually make, not money, make an impact, which has translated to money. But how did you get to that moment?
Okay, so it was basically me saying, there's this thing I want to do, which is creating content. And I think when anyone wants to start something or do something, they always see like, these are people who are doing this thing somewhere, and I would like to do something like this. There's always that person or that icon that is inspiring people. And I saw that in Marcus Brownlee, which is an American creator. And I was like, okay, I can bring quality content to this space. And when I started 7 years ago, it wasn't, I just saw that there was a gap in this space, and I was going to be like this person that brings in the quality. So I did like a thing where I put my life savings. It was around $5,000 at the time.
That is a lot.
And
of
I was
life
like,
savings.
yes. It took 6 months of a lot of work, and I was like, I'm putting everything into content creation. I did not have any idea that this was going to be like this huge or anything 7 years ago, but I wanted quality. I wanted to make sure that anything I put out would be valuable to people, would educate people, or maybe even inspire them. And I'm lucky that I was reading a lot of books early on before I started. I loved reading books, and it just made everything a bit easier. Standing on the shoulders of giants, of people who have done this thing before, helped me to plot the path essentially. So it was me saying, I want to give value through tech. So this is mobile tech, playing with smartphones, accessories, apps, and things like that. And you know, it's been an interesting past 7 years.
Okay, I wanted to find out, you know, something I learned in HR, which is if you walk up to an HR person and say you want a job, naturally for the people in HR, they do what they call matching your interest with your skill.
Yeah.
So you may be interested in being a broadcaster, but you don't have the talent or whatever for it. You may be interested, but you don't have the required skill or even the basic talent. So for people who want to go into this space, as Kayode has said, how do you match their interests with what they will be able to create, especially people that are social media lazy sometimes? People like me, Kayode can tweet me. I don't tweet so much.
You're not if you're active on social media.
So how do you help people match this interest of theirs with the kind of content they should be creating? Because somebody will say, oh, I like how Fisayo is merging tech with finance.
Yeah.
They may not understand how money works, but just likes the idea. So when people walk up to you, if they've ever done so, but if they haven't, let me ask the question on their behalf. They just want to get into this space. They're interested. How would you advise them to match their interest with their skills?
Yeah. I like what you said about like combining tech and finance, because I have an economics degree, and it was like, Fisayo wants to simplify the Nigerian economy, or the economy essentially. So that was what spurred like the Finance Friday series for me. I think when anyone wants to start something like this, they should look at what is that thing I can talk about for hours on end without getting bored of talking about it. For me, that was tech, and the other things, finance, and I started interviewing business leaders and creatives. I think I put out a post for my New Year's, and we got 500 people to sign up to a response where I was like, I want to call a creator. I want to talk to someone who wants to make content. And I was overwhelmed because I didn't even expect like 500 people to say that they would want to like. And when we saw all the responses, a lot of people are, first of all, they are scared of coming to the camera. They are afraid of looking at the camera and expressing themselves. But the thing is, you have to figure out that topic. Like, don't go into content thinking about how can I make all this money or how can I be like this person. It's nice, but go into it thinking, what is the value that I can give people? What's this thing that I can do that is going to leave this person watching better off? And that's how we create our content. That's what we think of whenever we want to make something. So I have 4 people that work with me in the team. Kelechi, Tony is my amazing animator. Kelechi is our senior editor. Coinsola, she does like our podcasts, and then there's Stephanie as well, who helps with all the organization. So all of them.
Shout out to all the members of the team. Shout out to all the members of the team.
We are all like thinking like, what is the way we can make something that impacts people? What is the way we can make something that when you come to Fisayo's content, you leave better off than you came? So always think of the value first. What can I do that I can talk about for hours on end that I don't get bored of talking about? And that's what can inform the kind of content you want to do. I think every other thing is added on, like the sound quality should be important. People can stand a bad video, but they can't really stand bad audio.
Sure.
So you should think about that. But then you can now start improving your visuals, like how can I bring in angles, storytelling, or all these kind of things. But the main thing is value first, then learning all these other processes after. Just think of the thing, like, Channel Steve is giving value to Nigerians by saying you're bringing quality people to the show, we're watching it, we're enjoying it, you're bringing quality information. So what is that thing I can do that people can tune into me every time?
And that's why we have you on the show. I'm not sure, because I see you and I'm thinking I'm watching your video and imagine you're interviewing us. Maybe we'll get to that point when you get to ask us questions as you do. But you started with $5,000. I don't know if you had started before then.
Yes, I'd been a graphic designer before many years. Before.
So you didn't just appear, $5,000 didn't just enter. You did some work to earn that. Yeah. And I'm talking about people that are at that very level where they don't have $1. They just have a mobile phone and maybe some little money in their bank account. So I would like to tie that beginning phase. Maybe you have some advice, and I think you've actually given some of them. But speak to us also about how viable digital content creation, the ecosystem really is. I mean, a lot of people see your subscriber count and they just try to do, $1 per subscriber. Wow, Fisayo, $600,000.
I wish.
You wish, right? But that's not to say you've not found innovative ways to get revenue, because it's also important. You need to be viable. You need to be sustainable. I mean, you have a team. Your team will need to be paid and, of course, expand. So how viable is that sector? And for this year, what are the areas you think people can focus on to, let me just put it simply, to make that money?
So let me start with the first part, which is getting to start. I think when I first started, I started as a designer. I remember when I made my first, was it $500? I was in the BRT and I screamed that day. It was like, I've never seen this before. Like, this is huge. It just opened something in my head that this is possible. There's something here, and I just kept on exploring graphic design, and I built that graphic design skill. So I think nobody wants to be a broke creative, because essentially this is also a creative endeavor. You are doing this thing, you are creating something, and you are sharing this knowledge or this skill of making people laugh or making people inspired, those kinds of content. You're sharing this thing to the world. So first of all, you don't want to be a broke creative, so you have to find a way to make money. So you have to find a way to at least get some basic things, like maybe a smartphone, because you can actually make good content with your smartphones now.
With just your smartphone?
With just your smartphone, yes. There are many creators with millions of subscribers or millions of followers that just use their smartphone. So you can actually do that. Like I said, the main thing is, what is the value I'm giving? A comedian makes people laugh, that's their value. Somebody who does speeches will make people inspired, that is the value. For Fisayo, he makes educational content, tech content. My content is geared towards more of the teaching, the educational side. So that is the value I'm giving. I'm making you come to my page to become better off. Whether you're learning about a phone or something, you are living better than you came. So figure out, find a way to make money. If you have a job, don't quit your job for social media. I would not recommend that because
just to follow up, when we try to ask people money, remember when we asked the entertainment people money, they wanted to intimidate us with $100,000. Besides specifics, don't beat around the bush. How much can two questions in one, how much money can be made? Let's use it for an example. I know FIRS may not be listening. Don't worry, they are still
he pays his taxes.
Yeah, so
I have an account.
if you have 600,000 people or subscribers on YouTube, how much is coming? How much is the average amount? That's question number one. Two, everybody's doing podcasts, a lot of what. So what are people not talking about that you have observed? So two questions in one before we wrap up.
That's interesting. So the first part is, you don't get paid based on subscribers. I think the subscriber numbers are not the ultimate metric. They are good, they are very good that 600,000 people decided to say, I will follow Fisaya. But if you check, there are more people that actually unsubscribed from the channel, which is fine. So it happened, there was a day I posted something one time, there were 2,000 people that unfollowed because something went viral, something had like 27 million views on my page. And then they were like, okay, why is he posting this other thing? So it's normal. However, the thing is, you get paid based on the views. So that's the YouTube platform. For every 1,000 views, you get paid. And again, it depends on the country. You get paid like maybe $5 or $3 or so. So if I have 1 million views, and it's called the CPM, the cost per 1,000. If it is like $5, that's $5,000 that you make. If it is based on like another country, like the US, for instance, that's like $10,000.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the specifics in terms of money. So you can actually look at those views and maybe compute it in your head. And then the second part of the question is, what are people not talking about today? I think there are many things, there are many topics.
Just give us one, we've got time.
First, I think you should, I would advise anyone who is looking to start or who wants to create something like this to figure out how they can bring themselves into their content, their own unique perspective, or something that is teachable, something that is educative, that they can then infuse their own story into.
Because there's always a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Fisayo, it's been great having you on the show. You can check Fisayo out on YouTube, Fisayo for Sudo, and across all social media platforms.
Thank you very much.
Maybe next time we'll be on your show. I'll go without further ado, but Fisayo, it's good to have you on the show today. I'm sure you're a fan of football because that's what we're talking about next. When we return on the show, AFCON is in a few days. Yeah, there was that downer yesterday with the Super Eagles against Guinea. But we'll talk about that. Cecilia joins us next. She's our sports correspondent. Hey, you don't want to miss this. Stay with us. It's still the Morning Brief. countdown to AFCON 2023 in 2024. We have Cecilia Morbridge joining us, our sports anchor. Hi, Cici.
Great to be here, you guys.
Passionate Cecilia. They'll get to know very soon.
Cecilia, you don't look like yesterday's match. You look way better than yesterday's match. You should dress in the spirit of that loss.
Oh, come on, guys. It's pre-AFCON friendly.
What happened?
It's just a warm-up game. I mean, we won't see it as a big deal. Yes, it's a damper. You know, when you're going to a tournament, you want to go on a high. But, yeah, it just didn't happen for Spirits of Nigeria. I mean, maybe Victor Boniface's injury prior to me just be another damper for them. But I think we could have done better. But we shouldn't be surprised about Joseph Pissarro because if you look at his record, it doesn't be good. But this game, I mean, we won't consider the penalty. I thought maybe Musa should be able to, at least converted that, but he just couldn't do that. So he ended 2-0. Yes, it's a warm-up game. Sometimes it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I mean, Argentina at the World Cup in Qatar, we saw what happened, losing to Saudi Arabia, and everyone thinking what's going to happen to Messi. It's supposed to be last World Cup and everything, but they went on to win it. So maybe we don't have that confidence yet, but I think that this, Joseph Pissarro may have seen what he has done with this game. He can take a look at it and see the loopholes he can actually plug, because our first game is going to be on the 14th, which is on Sunday. So when you're looking at that, and also the fact that he was able to test some new players and everything, that will be something we should look at and see he could be able to plug the hole. And of course, Guinea is not just a small team. They're in a group that has Cameroon and of course the defending champions, Senegal. So they are also a team, looking forward to get into the Nations Cup on a high. But the team will return to Nigeria today. It'll be hosted by the governor, and then they fly to Côte d'Ivoire, in the morning on Wednesday. So, I mean, when you're looking at me, okay.
That's his record.
That's his record. Joseph Pissarro was appointed May 2022. Look at this record. He has played 16 games and he has won 6, drawing 3, and losing 7. So this is not the record you want to see going into the Nations Cup. The last time we talked about this record, the losses were 6. And then you're looking at 48% win ratio. I mean, for a coach that is coaching so-called a superstar team, because his star-studded team, indeed is not going because of injury. Victor Boniface is also out because of injury.
I hear he's been replaced by...
yes, of course. It was replaced by Yusuf.
And Boniface.
And Boniface, I'm trying to remember, Boniface...
Murphy.
Murphy has replaced Boniface before CAF will come. Maybe at the end of the day, CAF will confirm. Before the end of today, CAF will confirm his replacement for Victor Boniface.
Go ahead, just finish.
So when you're looking at that replacement now, Terry Murphy, yes, he's been on form, throughout the season, last season, and of course beginning of this season. So I mean, when he started, you're thinking maybe we're going to be having Victor Sime and Boniface, the two of them, leading this. To smart because of their records. I mean, we know how many goals Victor Boniface has scored. Bayern Leverkusen, he plays for them, and they are currently top in Bundesliga. So you're looking at that caliber of striker. You're looking at Victor Sime coming together. But Terry Murphy, he's not a damper, but then we don't know how it's going to work for both of them going into the Nations Cup.
It appears, walk us through some people have this impression that besides the attack, everything is more like an experiment.
Yes.
Including our coach Joseph Pissarro, the defense, the midfield,
the
goalkeeper. In fact, the goalkeeper, somebody went spiritual. I don't want to say what the person said. So how concerned are you about going into AFCON with that kind of team?
Yeah, I think it depends on what he's going. Sometimes coaches use their strength. There are some coaches who go into tournaments and they don't have they know where the strengths are. The strength is actually in your attack, so you can make use of that. Make use of the wing. Yes, our fullbacks are really very good, but if you look at the central defenders, I mean, you're thinking of who are you going to pair with. I mean, Kenneth Omeru, yes, is there. Trust Ekong. Then you also look at Sheyi. Then you also look at, I'm trying to remember, the other guy, Calvin Bassey.
It's a bit tricky packing all of those teams in your head.
Calvin Bassey. So when you look at these players, and then Olaino is also there. So Olaino and Calvin Bassey, they're pairing. Usually, it's not something you want to go for because one is slow and the other one is more like a rugby player or something. No, because he's very aggressive. So you're not looking at how do you bring it Trust Ekong for him to be able to calm that defense back. And you also have Osai Samuel, who loves to go forward and also want to score. So because of his pace also, that's another player looking at the back. But the midfield is also lean. And people said, I read a comment yesterday talking about the fact that if your defenders are not good enough, if you don't have a good goalkeeper, the defenders' courage or confidence is actually really, really very low. But I think before the ball gets to the goalkeeper, you're supposed to have a solid defense. So if you don't have a very good goalkeeper, you can be proud of. So what happened? How do you show up your defense? How do you pair your centre backs? How do you pair your full backs for them to come out with a good?
You know, for me, it's even very concerning because I don't know how you would describe Osimhen. Would you describe Osimhen as a pointsman or somebody that plays from the zone?
A pointsman, yeah. He's a striker.
It's a problem.
So he needs the supply more.
Because when you have a weak defense or technically weak defense and there's a pointman striker, it's a problem because he needs to be fed. How does Pesero want to close that gap?
Yeah, I think it comes from the wings, the midfield. That's what we're talking about, the midfield. Let's forget the defense and what happened in the midfield. That's where you have, that's where people like Alex Iwobi comes in, and that's where you have Samuel Chukwueze coming. That's why you also have Moses Simon comes in. So when you have that guy supplying from the wings, we're going to have a better team. But I think if indeed there was around, fine is not around, but we're thinking that because of the forward role, he has been playing for Leicester City and the goals he has scored, that would have been better. Boy, he's out. Maybe Yusuf can actually do that. So you actually need a creative midfielder, and I think that would be the job of Alex Iwobi to actually see how he can distribute the ball, feed into the wingers, and how the wingers can actually cross the ball to the likes of Victor Osimhen. And also because Victor Osimhen is a hustler. Sometimes he wants to go back and goes back, get the ball. But the pressure shouldn't be so much on him, so that his focus will just be on scoring the goals and not going back to help in the defense or in the midfield.
Two issues, because I saw Boniface put up a tweet and he said that, on the 20 Nations Cup, he was injured 7 days before. Now, this one, he was injured 6 days, and he just said, only God knows why. I know a lot of people will miss him, but looking at the group as we wind down, Sisi, we have Ivory Coast.
Yes, there's no station.
We played with the Guinea yesterday, but we have more Guineas in our group. We have Equatorial Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, the same, and we know that no teams are small. Yes, we support our Super Eagles, but do you have a prediction, Cecilia?
How far can we go?
Oh, I don't know, like maybe semi-finals. With what we have now, if you look at the team and you look at the coach, you could say semi-final will be a win for us. But I think we have a squad that can win the Nations Cup. But I don't have the confidence on the coach.
So, Ivory Coast. Okay, our first match is against
Equatorial Guinea.
And then what do you see us?
I think we can actually. That's a game we can win because after losing this, you don't expect us to. If we had
lose the next match,
lose the next match, so that's not gonna. I don't know. You can't tell. It's football. But I think.
Thank God. I'm happy you cautioned yourself.
It's football. But against Cote d'Ivoire, we can get the least we can get from Cote d'Ivoire is a draw. I mean, we don't have the Wifres Zaha that people have been talking about Galatasaray. I mean, we don't have the stars in Cote d'Ivoire like you used to have the likes of Didier Drogba. Remember 2013 how we beat them, Didier Drogba, and everyone.
Exactly.
So we can, I mean, with the less
there's a lot. Let's bring Bukola into the conversation. I don't know, maybe the straight question, I don't know what Bukola wants to ask before we jump out of the street.
Bukola has been dodging this.
Bukola has been dodging this, but now we are practicing sex.
It's a Women's Day on the program, gentlemen. So we've had the women during the political segment, and now we have Cecilia. And what more do we need than the woman energy to encourage the Eagles to go?
Bukola, what question
do you have for Super Eagles? Bukola's question.
Well, 30 seconds. The injuries, we have quite a number of men down. How do you think it's going to affect, as we go into the
30 seconds,
start of the game?
Brilliant question, Bukola.
We already know. I talked about term. We already have replacement for those two players that are injured, and they were not really key players, in our qualifiers and also in our previous tournaments. So as long as Victor Osimhen is not injured, I think I'm okay. Yes, midfield, we don't know what Yusuf is going to bring in, but I think he may just fit into that role. But because of those two injuries, that's why I'm a bit skeptical. At first, I was thinking, we can do this again, we can win it. But with those two injuries, I'm not as confident. That's why I talk about the semi-final. But I think with those two new guys they brought in, the coach knows what to do with those guys and see how we can win it fourth Nations Cup.
Cecilia, you're back on Friday. By the way, look out for us on Friday. We'll be dressed differently. So
with our jerseys, right? And I'm going to kick the ball on Friday. I'm going to surprise you guys.
Oh my goodness, I'm anticipating that.
Oh, you don't want woman solidarity.
Amazingly, we'll be expecting those jerseys for us at the end of
let's do it again, jersey.
2 working days. Let's have it ahead of time. We want to support the Super Eagles, but no pressure. Well, guys, it's been a fantastic journey so far, and
indeed,
we're hopeful that the Super Eagles will make us proud, and we will be here rooting for them. We hope you've been been enjoying every part of the show, and it's time to just bounce. But we must thank Cecilia Morugwa, sports correspondent and anchor, for coming to give us insight on the preparations of the Eagles. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
Well, stay with us right here on Channels Television. Sunrise Daily is next. You don't want to miss the conversations, but you can always keep the conversation ongoing on X, #CTV Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Ikele.
And we'll be back again tomorrow to rev up your morning. Thank you for staying with us. I am Bukola Koka.